The sun was dipping low behind the buttes, casting long shadows across the dry Nevada plain, when Lila McAllister heard the sound. A low, strained grunt followed by the unmistakable thud of a body hitting the earth. She dropped the bucket of water she'd been hauling up from the creek and ran toward the sound, heart thumping, shotgun still leaning forgotten against the fence post. 100 terrible images filled her mind: a wounded animal, a drunken ranch hand, or worse, an outlaw. But what she found stole the breath right out of her. A man lay crumpled in the dust just beyond her fence line. His shirt was soaked dark with blood. One arm dangled awkwardly behind him. His face was sunburned, streaked with dirt, and his lips were cracked from thirst. Lila hesitated. She lived alone since her pa died last winter. Taking in strangers wasn't just unwise, it was foolish. But she'd been raised by a preacher's wife who'd once said, "The Lord hides himself in the broken." With a grunt, she knelt beside him. "Can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered. "Water," he rasped. That single word, barely more than a breath, was all it took. She dragged him toward the cabin, half carrying, half dragging his dead weight across the porch and inside to her small cot. The man passed out cold the moment she laid him down. For the next 3 days, Lila did little else but nurse him. She stitched the wound on his side, changed the bandages, and spooned broth between his lips. He burned with fever the second night, mumbling words she couldn't quite catch. Names, numbers, something about not meaning to. When he finally opened his eyes, they were the clearest gray she'd ever seen, like the morning fog on the ridge. He blinked slowly, taking in the cabin. "Where?" "You're safe," Lila said quietly. "You've been shot. I found you just before sundown 3 days ago." He tried to sit up but winced and fell back. "Damn, don't move too fast. You lost a lot of blood?" He closed his eyes again. "Name's Caleb," he muttered. "Caleb McGraw." She didn't press for more. "Not yet." Over the next week, Caleb regained his strength. He was quiet, polite, and helpful. On the 6th day, she caught him chopping firewood outside, shirt off, sweat glistening on his brow, the wound on his ribs still pink and healing. He wasn't just strong, he was careful, almost gentle with his movements, like a man who'd seen too much of life and now wanted to handle everything with care. At night, they sat on the porch watching the stars come out. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it was with a kind of old soul wisdom. "You ever think about leaving this place?" he asked one night, his voice low. Lila shook her head. "It's my home. My pa built this place with his own hands. Died here too." Caleb nodded slowly, his jaw tense. "Sometimes a place becomes a cage. Other times, it's a kind of salvation." She turned to look at him. "Which is it for you?" He didn't answer. One morning, Lila rode into town to buy flour and coffee. It was a small place, Dry Creek, the kind of town where gossip moved faster than wildfire and everyone knew everyone else's business. Inside the general store, while waiting in line, her eyes landed on the notice board near the back. That's when her heart stopped. A wanted poster stared back at her, the ink still fresh. The sketch was unmistakable, the same gray eyes, the same sharp jaw. Caleb McGraw, $1,000 reward, dead or alive. The poster didn't say what he'd done, just armed and dangerous. Last seen near the Nevada border. Lila stood frozen, the bag of flour slipping from her hands. She picked it up slowly, her mind spinning. The man lying in her cabin, the man she'd fed and nursed and listened to under the stars, was a wanted fugitive? By the time she rode back to the homestead, the sun was high and blazing, but Lila felt cold all over. She found Caleb sitting on the porch, reading one of her pa old books. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded, trying to match his smile. But inside, everything had changed. The days bled into each other like paint on wet canvas, each one slightly brighter than the last. The stranger, still too weak to rise, began to speak in fragments, hushed memories of places ridden hard and friends left behind. He never gave his name. Not once. Just stories and questions. "Why'd you help me?" he rasped one morning, when his strength had returned enough to speak longer sentences. Lila sat on a stool beside the bed, peeling potatoes into a tin bucket. She looked over, surprised by the directness. "Because you were dying." And because no one deserves to die cold and alone. The stranger stared at the ceiling, jaw tight. Plenty do. She shook her head. That's not my call to make. His eyes flicked to her, something unreadable moving behind the storm-clad gray of them. Then he looked away. It took nearly 2 weeks before he could stand on his own. By the third, he was chopping firewood like a man possessed, not out of duty, but out of some quiet desperation, as if hard labor might absolve sins not yet named. He fixed her broken fence, dug out the root cellar after a rockfall, fed the chickens. Still no name. Lila began calling him Stray. It started as a joke, like a lost pup what wandered in from the storm. But he didn't protest. He even smiled once, a tight, flickering thing. They ate supper together each night, a small ritual wrapped in silence and the sounds of cutlery on enamel plates. Lila told stories about her childhood in Missouri, about her brother who died in the war, about how the valley used to be greener before the drought came. Sometimes Stray would laugh, not often, but when he did, it warmed the room more than the fire. She tried not to notice the way his shoulders squared when he walked, or how his hand always hovered near his side like it expected to drop. She tried not to wonder what lay behind the scars, the thick one across his brow, the twisted one on his forearm, the bullet crease above his collarbone. And then came the storm, not the kind with thunder and lightning, but the kind that rides in on horseback, with spurs jangling and voices raised. Lila was kneading bread when she heard the rumble of hooves. Stray froze at the window, his back stiffening. "Riders," he said flatly. "5, maybe 6. Lila stepped beside him. Dust, horses, men in long coats, sheriff's men. The blood drained from her face. "What did you do?" Stray didn't answer. He turned away, grabbed his saddlebag. Always packed, always close. "You're running," she whispered. He paused in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Lila, you don't know who I am." "Then tell me." His silence told her everything. Her voice broke. "I sheltered you. I trusted you. I didn't ask for your trust." He snapped. "I never should have stayed this long." She grabbed his arm. "Then why did you?" For a second, just a second, his mask cracked. His eyes softened. "Because I wanted to be someone else. Just for a little while." The knock at the door came like a gunshot. Lila opened it slowly. A man with a tin star stepped forward, hat in hand. "Ma'am, sorry to trouble you. Sheriff Alden. We're looking for a man. Dangerous fugitive. Escaped custody near Carson. We tracked him through the ridge." He held up a wanted poster. Lila's breath caught. The drawing was rough, but unmistakable. The scar, the eyes, $2,000 reward, dead or alive. She swallowed hard. "Haven't seen anyone." A pause. He studied her face. "You sure?" "He's wounded. Might have come looking for help." She folded her arms. "Ain't nobody here but me and the chickens." Sheriff Alden nodded slowly. "All right, just be careful. Man like that, he's more snake than man. Dangerous to the bone." When they left, Lila closed the door with shaking hands. She turned. Stray was standing in the shadows. He'd seen it, the poster, her lie. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Then Lila broke the silence. "I don't want to know your name," she said. "But I need to know something else." His jaw tensed. "Are you what they say you are?" Stray's voice was quiet. "I've done things I ain't proud of. But I ain't the devil they make me out to be." Her chest ached with the weight of it all. The trust, the doubt, the ache she didn't want to name. "Then go," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "If they come back, I won't lie twice." He nodded once, slow, then reached into his saddlebag and pulled something wrapped in oilcloth. A revolver, blackened steel, worn grip. He set it on the table. "For protection," he said. "I'll be gone by dawn." But dawn came, and so did the riders. Not the sheriff's men this time. Bandits, 4 of them, rough-looking, faces hidden behind scarves. They came fast and hard, guns out before they'd even dismounted. Lila barely had time to duck behind the stove as bullets tore through the cabin walls. The chickens screamed, glass shattered, the smell of smoke filled the air. One voice barked, "We know he's here, lady. Hand him over, and maybe we won't burn it all down." Lila crawled to the table. Her hands found the revolver. Her fingers shook. She'd never fired a gun in her life. Another window shattered, then a shot from inside. Stray. He was already moving, already shooting, already out the door like a shadow made flesh. Gunfire exploded in the yard. Lila pressed herself to the floor, heart pounding. Screams. More shots. And then silence. The smoke drifted across the yard like ghosts not quite ready to leave. Lila stepped out slowly, revolver still in her hands, the weight of it shocking. Even now that it was over, she saw him first, stray, kneeling beside the porch, one hand pressed to his shoulder, the other resting on his thigh, where blood soaked through his trousers. Beyond him, two bodies lay still in the dirt. A third groaned somewhere behind the henhouse. The fourth had ridden off, his horse trailing blood in panic. Lila dropped the gun and ran to Stray's side. "You're hit. Bullet grazed me. Thigh's worse. But I'm alive." He managed a weak smirk. "You okay?" She nodded, kneeling beside him, trying to find where to press, what to wrap, how to stop the bleeding. "I thought they were lawmen." "They weren't. They were bounty scum. Heard about the price on my head. Been chasing me for weeks." His breath came shallow. "You saved me." Again, Lila pulled his head into her lap. "You were the one who ran out into gunfire." "Not me." His hand found hers. "I didn't want you to die for a man you hardly know." She didn't respond right away, because in truth, she wasn't sure that was still true. Later, once the worst of the bleeding was stopped and Stray was resting again in her bed, Lila gathered what remained of her courage. She sat beside him, watched the lines of pain etched into his face, and finally asked the question she'd been holding for days. "Tell me your real name." He was silent for a long time. Then, Calder Hayes. The name felt heavy, real, human. "What did you do?" she asked softly. "What started all this?" His eyes opened, unfocused but steady. "Killed a man." Lila stiffened. He noticed. "I didn't want to." He was hurting a girl. A young thing. Couldn't have been more than 15. Town drunk was her stepfather. Sheriff wouldn't stop it. No one would. So I did. He swallowed hard, dragged the girl to the church steps, rode back, and I ended it. Lila's hands clenched. "Law said it was murder. I say it was justice." She didn't speak for a long while. Then, very quietly, "Was it true? What they wrote on the poster? That you robbed banks? Burned a barn with people inside?" He turned his face away. "Lies. Most of it. Couple of truths twisted for drama. I ran after the killing. Took money where I could. Slept in haylofts. Didn't hurt nobody else, but they painted me a villain. Easier that way." Lila sat still, her thoughts spinning like wagon wheels on ice. Finally, she said, "You were right about something." He looked at her. "I hardly knew you," she said. "But I do now." And she stood, walked to the table, and picked up the wanted poster. She tore it in half, then into quarters, then into shreds. Over the next few weeks, Calder healed again, slower this time, more cautious. He no longer spoke of leaving. Lila no longer asked. They settled into a rhythm. Morning coffee, chores, shared laughter. One night, she watched him leaning against the porch rail, the moonlight casting silver along his scarred cheek. "You could stay," she said. He turned, caught off guard. "I mean it. No one comes out here unless they're chasing chickens or ghosts. You've got strong hands, a good heart. That's more than most." He stared at her like a man hearing music for the first time in years. "You'd trust me like that?" Lila stepped forward, placed a hand on his chest. "I already did, and I've had no reason to regret it. But peace, like spring in the high country, is a fragile thing. And one morning, it broke. A new rider came up the valley trail. Not sheriff, not bandit. A kid, maybe 20, nervous, wiry, with dust on his hat and fear in his eyes. He carried a folded newspaper, yellowed and stained. "You're Calder Hayes," he stammered. "Aren't you?" Calder stood still. "Who wants to know?" The boy unfolded the paper and pointed at a column. "They cleared your name. The girl you saved," she testified. "Said everything. Folks back in Carson got up in arms. Turns out the sheriff's the one who should have been behind bars." Lila stepped closer. "What are you saying?" The kid looked between them. "You're free, Mr. Hayes. The law's not after you no more." Calder said nothing for a long time. Then he laughed, a sound like gravel tumbling down a mountainside, surprised and hollow and full of disbelief. "Free," he whispered. Lila placed a hand on his arm. "What will you do now?" He looked at her, held her gaze. "I thought I'd ask the lady who saved my life if she needed help milking her cow." Months passed. The chickens grew fat. The garden flourished. The scars faded, if not completely, then enough. Calder built a new barn. Lila taught him how to bake bread that didn't turn to stone. And sometimes, late at night, they would sit by the fire, fingers laced together, speaking of old ghosts like they were shadows passing harmless on the wall. The valley grew quiet again, not with silence but with peace. The kind that comes after pain, after fear, when two people have learned to trust the rhythm of each other's breath.